Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Dr. Richard Dixey, who's here to share with us his new book, 3 Minutes a Day, a 14-week course to learn meditation and transform your life. When most of us think of meditation, we think of being on the cushion for hours at a time. But is it possible to meditate for just 3 minutes a day and have that transform everything? Well, today's show is going to cover just that. Dr. Richard Dixey is a scientist and lifelong student of Asian philosophy. He runs the Light of Buddha Dharma Foundation in India with his wife Wengmo, who is the eldest daughter of a Tibetan Lama. He is senior faculty member at Dharma College in Berkeley and divides his time between California and India. So welcome to the show, Dr. Richard Dixey.
Thank you.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I've been meditating a long time, and a lot of people try meditation and fail, or they try it, they get going for a bit and they can't make the time in their schedules. And I was teaching meditation at a college we have in Berkeley, California. And I realized that the key insights of meditation can be achieved far more in very short time, basically. So I began to develop a 3-minute approach where a very focused meditation sessions for just 3 minutes are used. And it was very successful. It was a very successful course. People really liked it. So as a result, I developed a book, and that's what the book is. It's 14 meditation exercises, each one done for 3 minutes a day. And the idea is if you do this over 14 weeks, you'll land up with a meditation practice you can access, and you can access any time during the day. So, of course, once you've got a taste for the thing, you might want to make it longer sessions, but there's no need to get the key insights that meditation offers.
So is meditation considered a skill set that most anybody can learn?
Absolutely. In fact, my view is that meditation is indeed a skill set. It's not in any way religious or special. It is a skill set like playing the violin or playing golf or something. And it's so fundamental to our experience as human beings that it should be taught in primary school along with reading and writing. It really is a fundamental practice to do with understanding our own experience, which is something, unfortunately, that our education system totally ignores as if it is of no interest whatsoever. And so meditation is a life skill of great value.
So in your book, you talk about reaction time. How does that relate to meditation?
Well, this is where we come to the nub of the matter. We all know we have a reaction time. Everybody has knocked a cup off the table and watched helplessly as it goes to the floor, realizing that you just aren't going to be able to catch it. What people don't realize is that reaction time is quite generally the case. Every experience we have is approximately 0.4 of a second behind reality. That is the gap. In fact, I refer in the introductory chapter to a book to an amazing video that I found on the internet where this guy's running across a quadrangle in the pouring rain and the security cameras catch him. And a lightning bolt hits the ground about 4 feet from him. And he takes a full step further, he's taking about 2 steps a second. He takes a full step after he's nearly been hit by lightning before he reacts. And you can see it there on the video. And this is the gap we have. Now, in that gap, our experience is generated. We actually have a whole process that goes on, which takes inputs from our senses and generates a world map, a kind of model of reality for us. And this is our experience. In fact, this is the world. There is nothing we can experience outside this world map, but we have no understanding of how it's generated or indeed what it contains. And what meditation is about is gradually coming to identify this world map and generate awareness of it being generated. And this knowledge is transformative, because so many of our hang-ups, so many of our problems, and all of our stress is related to this world map.
So I know you talk about this gap in between when there's actuality and our response to it. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit more for us?
Yes, indeed. common language, it's quite interesting how common language sometimes captures things. We have in our common language a word called recognition. We say, I recognize you. I recognize that. Now, that's a very interesting term because recognition means cognition done again. It's recognized. And what actually occurs in this gap is once a sense input or an idea has come to the mind, it is recognized, re-experienced, and named. And that naming process is a fundamental function of our mental activity. Now, along with naming comes opinions, likes, dislikes, wants, all the problems that we have when we find ourselves in a state of disquiet happen in the recognitive phase of our mental process. Now, that recognitive phase is accessible in meditation. We can come to see how we name, how we generate what we think are our own opinions, which often turn out to be things that we picked up randomly here and there. And as a result, we land up with a very, very profound transformation of our experience of life.
In your book, you talk about all these different types of meditations we can do in 3 minutes. What is one that you'd like to share with us?
Well, what I do in the book is I start off by working through the senses. Now, a very simple model of experience is that experience arises through what you could call 6 gates to a city. They're the 5 gates of the 5 senses. And then there's the gate of mind and emotion. So we are, if you like, sitting in the center of 6 separate input streams coming from all these parts of our experience. And one of the things I do in the book in the initial phases is go through each of the gates and say, okay, let's take the visual gate. Let's take the auditory gate. Let's take the sensation gate. And what I'm trying to do is to give experience of how our display of mind and experience is generated. And then having done that, then begin to explore using imagination itself, what you could call the mental gate as a meditation object. And this is a very powerful moment when people realize that their own imagination can also be an object of awareness for them. They truly begin to access their own experience as experience, rather than using the display to name things in the quote unquote outside world, which of course is not truly outside, as all we ever experience is what's given to us by our own mind. So this is a progressive series of exercises. In fact, what I suggest in the book is it's a 14-chapter book that people don't read on. They do 1 week's worth of exercise before they open the second chapter and do that chapter's exercises. And the reason is because I'm trying to embed the ideas that are generated in the first week in actual experience, in your experience, in my experience, in the reader's experience, before going on to the next chapter. Meditation is not about learning about anything. It's about directly engaging with our own experience and getting a grip on that experience. Now, the problem we have, and this has been extraordinarily heightened in modernity, is we are being adverted. That's to say, our attention is being grabbed by this and that. The recognitive process of mind I mentioned a moment ago is full of triggers. And what advertisers do is they generate images and they generate ideas that capture our attention. And this is particularly true now with these massive search engines like Google that can find out what interests people and generate targeted messages. As a result, we find ourselves being dragged this way and dragged that way with this injunction and that injunction. All the news is bad news. That's because it captures our attention. So we're being pulled around by news. And it's very, very stressful. And so as you begin to generate an understanding of how your experience is made, so you can start getting control over this otherwise extremely stressful unconscious, reflexive reactivity, which is what makes us so exhausted by the end of the day. So meditation is interesting. It's almost as though you're not doing anything significant. Yet somehow, by doing this, you generate control. Now, the control you generate is more like you actually achieve space between input and output, between cognition and recognition, and are able to control whether your recognitive response is going to be upset or anger or, whatever. You're in a position where you can start to get control. Now, one of the big difficulties I mentioned in modernity is we're surrounded by extremely sophisticated computer algorithms that are generating things to take our control away from us, to encourage us to purchase things, to encourage us to react to things, to excite our interest, etc. But this is not actually a good thing. It's a very exhausting thing. And so getting this control at this key part in our experience is a fundamental life skill. It is as important as reading and writing, without question. Yet, as I mentioned earlier, for some strange reason, it is totally ignored in our educational systems. So most people who come into contemporary culture have no proper understanding of how their attention is being grabbed, why they feel so frazzled, and indeed, why life appears to be meaningless. Because if our control is being taken from us by other people all the time, we have no chance to find meaning. In fact, our meaning is being stolen away by advertisers who wish to get our money. So meditation turns out to be a fundamental element of a life well lived. Of course, having done that, one can then go on and explore far more deeply what is sometimes called the inner world, but is really just the world of our experience. We can start exploring all kinds of things that are otherwise hidden away because our reflexive reactivity so stirs up, so makes us so agitated and turbulent that we're unable to address them. And this means that we can become more creative, we can become more intuitive, and we can find genuine freedom, in particular, freedom from quote unquote external influence that's actually triggering us to react. So all these benefits come along. And what's surprising is if you just focus clearly on a simple meditation technique and you know why you were doing it, and that is the key, you know why you were doing it. So you understand the background and then you simply focus your attention on a specific element of your experience. You can generate genuine benefit very, very quickly. This is not a long process. Now, there's been a tradition that's come out of the monastic traditions of Asia that we should meditate for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, these really long, heroic sessions. I would suggest that whilst that's fine for full-time practitioners, for most people living their ordinary lives, that is completely impossible. And indeed, if you don't know why you're doing it, it just becomes an exercise in willpower. Can I sit for that long? This is not the point. The point is to understand experience. That is to say, to stand under. Understand is another one of those amazing words. To stand under experience, to actually get an insight from within of what is happening in our life. And this is why I wrote the book. And I'm very, very optimistic that readers who go through the 14 weeks will indeed, at the end of it, have a purchase on their experience that they can build on. I've also developed a free app that goes along with it because I'm keen for people to be able to do this anytime during the day. There's no need to sit cross-legged in a shrine hall in front of a statue and burn incense. All of that is just window dressing on a fundamental process, which is to understand the nature of our own mind. Our own mind is the only mind we've got. And if we don't understand it in a very fundamental way, we don't understand anything, because everything that happens comes to us through our own minds. And so meditation turns out to be of completely universal importance, not just some specialized thing that one might do. This is something we ought to do and we ought to understand. Now, we're in a very fortunate position that the old meditation traditions of Asia have unbroken lineages. They have meditation lineages that go back thousands of years, and they're being translated and given to us. And what's surprising when you read these traditions is the accuracy with which medieval meditators, often writing best part of 2,000 years ago, describe elements of experience that cognitive psychologists are now demonstrating through experiment. These insights are valid and they're being validated by current research, but you can generate them yourself for yourself in a very simple manner. And that's what the book is about. Now, in terms of a meditation to talk about, the only thing one can do over a radio interview, I suppose, is to do the simplest meditation at all, of course, which is watching the breath. I actually start out watching a candle. Well, that wouldn't be possible. I then move on to listening to a fading bell. The problem is when sounds fade over interviews like Zoom cuts them to silence very quickly because you hit the background filters. So there's only one meditation one could simply do over a radio interview, which is breath meditation. Now, breath meditation is really interesting because breath meditation is actually a meditation on touch. The sensation of the breath coming and going from the body is actually a sensation of touch. Whether it's the movement of your clothes against your body as you breathe in and out, you get a little sensation of touch as your torso moves against your clothing, or at the tip of the nose, you can feel the cool air as it comes in and out, particularly if you close your mouth and breathe through your nose. And so one of the meditations, classic meditation, most people think is meditation, but it's actually just one of many things you can do, is to simply observe your own breathing and do so for 3 minutes. Now, what happens when you try and do that, even for 3 minutes, is you find yourself being adverted this way and that by arising thoughts, by sounds, by sensations. All kinds of things become apparent as you try to do this. So even that simplest of meditations can show you how frazzled our inner world is. But just do it deliberately for 3 minutes on a clock on your mobile phone. Do that every day, and you'll find by day 3 or 4, you've generated a little haven where you are in control because you are focusing on one thing that you're always doing, you're breathing in and out, and you gradually develop the capacity to stay on topic, stay with your breath, and all these other influences begin to fade away. And this is the part of it's part of the opening up of this much broader exploration of experience that I've been talking about.
When we get disruptive thoughts, how do we work through that?
Well, another thing that I address a lot in this book are what are called the 5 obstacles, the 5 nivaranas. And this is a very simple insight that was generated really early, probably 2,500 years ago. And the idea is that when we sit quietly, 5 different types of obstacle are going to arise. They're in 2 pairs. The first pair is attraction and aversion. The second pair is agitation and dullness. And the 5th one is doubt. Now, it's amazing how precisely those 5 words describe what happens when we get these obstacles that arise in our experience. Now, most thoughts that bug us are either things we want or things we don't want. They are one of the nivaranas. And our mental apparatus is always running scenarios, daydreaming about things I might get, things I did wrong, things I should be doing, etc., etc. And when we sit quietly and just watch the breath, for example, all of this activity becomes apparent. It's actually going on the whole time in our normal lives. We don't notice it because it's slightly under the level of our activity. But once we quieten our activity down, all this thinking becomes an object. Now, it's not actually a problem. The problem is our recognition of it. It's our reaction to it that is the problem. Now, the reason thoughts disturb us is because we react to them. Thoughts in and of themselves are nothing. They don't even exist. They come into existence and they go out of existence like clouds passing through an empty sky. So we have to learn to not react. Now, this is a skill. As I say, it's like learning the violin, and you play golf. We learn not to react. And as our reactivity goes down, so our clarity, our vipassana, which is the old word, clarity, our mental clarity gets brighter, and we start to see thoughts. And as we start to see thoughts, they then become far less of an obstacle and far more a vehicle for exploration. And there are specific techniques in the book, particularly about getting alongside thoughts, so we don't feel thoughts are taking us over, but we can actually land up moving with thought, thinking deliberately and then stopping thinking, all kinds of techniques to get control of what has been this subliminal irritant in our lives today. And it is one of the most important features of a successful meditator that their thoughts don't disturb them. It is not that they don't have thoughts. And a common misconception that the generality of people have about meditation is it's attempting to get to a thought-free state. It is not. That is a total misunderstanding. It is not to become thought-free. Rather, it is to become non-reactive to thought, something entirely different. And non-reactivity is the key. Now, non-reactivity means that if we wish to follow a thought, we choose to follow that thought, rather than having the thought oblige us to follow it, which is how we currently are. So there's an example of the kind of control that a successful meditator has and can develop very easily.
In your book, you talk about the power of a smile. How is that important in meditating?
Well, this is another thing that we talk about in the book, where the classic image that you find now in, restaurants and on people's bookshelves is a picture of the Buddha meditating. I mean, it's one of the most ubiquitous images in modernity now. Why do people like the Buddha? What are they looking at the Buddha? Well, of course, what the Buddha represents is spiritual independence, what you could call the spiritual but not religious. And indeed, if there was the fastest growing activity in modernity, it is that. People giving up organized religion, but still wishing to develop their spiritual life. And that is epitomized by the Buddha. Now, if you look at Buddha statues, they're all slightly smiling. It's not a big smile. It's a smile of satisfaction. The actual old ancient term for this is sukha. Sukha means satisfaction. And it turns out that mental calmness, a precursor to mental calmness, is satisfaction. Now, the weird thing about smiling is when you smile, even a slight smile, the sensation of happiness is triggered in your body. It's an amazing phenomenon, which anyone can experience. If you just sit quietly, don't let anybody look at you, and smile, you'll find that you get this glow in your body. Now, this is extremely valuable for meditation. And one of the exercises that we do in this book is to sit with a smile and deliberately make a slight smile. And by doing that, we find ourselves far more capable of generating a calm place within which thoughts arise and fall like birds flying through an empty house. And we're sitting there with this slight smile playing across our lips. And that's why you mentioned it. And indeed, it's a very interesting feature of a meditation practice.
Is there a point where we get off the cushion and into using meditation throughout our day?
Yes, actually, I almost suggest to people not to use a cushion, but to try, because these are such short meditation practices, I'd almost prefer it if people just did them wherever they are. The only reason for sitting cross-legged on a meditation cushion is because in Asian culture, there weren't chairs So people sit cross-legged the whole time. And secondly, the only reason to have this proper posture is so the torso is balanced, because you don't want to be always having to adjust your posture because you're sitting in an uneven way. So if you sit in a chair, on a sofa, or indeed on your cushion, the only reason to sit like that is so your body is balanced. And when your body is balanced, you can then concentrate on whichever element of your sensory array you wish to concentrate on. You're not having to adjust your posture all the time. But actually, towards the end of the book, I introduce exercises which are deliberately designed to interrupt the flow of the day. And this is because we go into a kind of mechanical way of living where one thing leads to another. And if you just stop and take a moment in the middle without any warning, I actually have on the app a random timer to do this. If you make a stop in the middle of whatever you're doing, it is quite extraordinary what a transformation that causes. Because we're in a kind of cycle. It's a bit like we're on a conveyor belt of activity, one thing leading to the next in a rather unconscious and unconsidered manner. When you stop, suddenly you see this conveyor belt of Vauxhall and Jetsam passing you by, and you go, wow, that is what I've been living in. Not surprising, by the end of the day, I feel tired and meaningless because I've not been living my life. My life's being lived for me by all this activity. So I'm not really keen on meditation done in a shrine hall or whatever. For people who are new to meditation, it makes it artificial and it creates an obstacle that means often people can't develop a real practice. And what I mean by that is a practice that is adopted by someone because they know what they're doing and they understand why doing this would be valuable. And it's such a short amount of time that they can do it anywhere. And once those three things are met, suddenly you have a tool you can use in your life. And that's what meditation offers. That's why it's such a remarkably important element of a life well lived.
Well, Richard, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
Yeah, sure. I have an author website, Richard Dixey, at just richarddixey.com, where there's a contact me page. Also, I'm a senior instructor at a school called Dharma College, and that's dharma-college.com, dharma-college.com. And there I give short meditation classes. I actually am reopening a class in 2 weeks' time on September the 15th. The first 6 weeks is called Welcome to a Calm Place, and the second 6 weeks is called Finding the Center. And that course essentially takes you through the 14 weeks of Learn to Meditate in 3 minutes a day. And we do a lot of other courses too about how perception is generated, because we feel that the task in front of us now is to reimagine the wisdom these ancient Asian lineages contain and express it in modern language. So please, anyone who's interested, either look at my author website, richarddixey.com, or look at dharma-college.com, both of which have information about meditation and also information about other courses, such as finding balance or self-care in life, because this is such an important task. And there's a great opening of interest, I think, in contemporary culture to doing this. So I would encourage people to go and look there, and they'll find everything they want to find.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed talking to you, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Dr. Richard Dixey. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, 3 Minutes a Day, a 14-week course to learn meditation and transform your life. 3 Minutes a Day is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And you can also purchase this book directly from the publisher, New World Library, at newworldlibrary.com. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns, These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. We're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
Looking for a page-turner? Cozy up to a fantasy adventure romance trilogy with The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper by Mary Kay Savarese. The second novel in the Star Writers trilogy, The Star Writers Club, is coming soon. Take the journey. Connect with Mary at www.maryksavarese.com. Her books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie bookstores.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antiojon-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium. A captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium. Live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.